first thing we're going to start with, first issue is going to be flooding. So what are some of the main problems that you see with flooding right now?
Well, if you look around this entire community, just down the street behind us and all throughout this area, flooding is something that has been a challenge for us for a good long time, and it's really been exacerbated over the storms of the last 4 or 5 years. So flooding is something that we've got to address yesterday. We need to have a plan to put in place, and we just haven't done that, and that's one of the things that this campaign has been about. Let's get a plan in place. Let's engage the experts that are out there, which is the Dutch, which we've done. They've been here. We've traveled there. We've spent a good bit of money with them. They've given us some recommendations. Let's incorporate them and let's get to work. Flooding is the challenge that we've got, and it's incorporated into transportation too, because we store all our excess water in our roads.
And how are you going to be doing this long-term versus short-term? Because obviously we need something that's going to be happening right now, but we also need something that's going to be staying here.
Well, one of the things that I've been able to do is prove up that short-term solutions actually do work through a series of check valve installations and investigations around the lower peninsula, around the low battery. We've actually found places of weakness in our stormwater system and gone in and placed check valves. So on days like today, when you have these super high tides, areas that flooded before don't. So there are short-term solutions that have been put in place and are working. Long term, we have to chase after the Calhoun West Drainage Project. We have to do that immediately. Calhoun West is really the marquee project. We have to go out to Church Creek. Church Creek is an area that needs a lot of work in terms of zoning and movement of water. We've got a report that 2.5 years ago, the engineer was given the gold coin for fixing flooding in the city. Yet 2.5 years later, we've done none of the recommendations. So West Ashley cleaning ditches, that's something we could start yesterday. So there are things we can do. We just have to do it. We have to prioritize it, have a plan, not just talk about it.
And what are the kind of places you're going to be looking for the funding to do these?
Well, it depends what you're looking at. Short-term solutions we can fund through our stormwater fund, and we have. Larger scale projects like Calhoun West will have to be cooperative between the city and the county. The county collects the half-cent sales tax. It is a half-cent transportation sales tax. A lot of these flooding issues affect our roads. So we've got pots of money out there and pools of money. The State Infrastructure Bank, we've got to look to them. We're looking at infrastructure. So between our own resources, the county and the State Infrastructure Bank, that's really where we're going to go. There's been some talk about the federal government. That's way too far out in the future and too much of an uncertainty. We need to go to work today.
And you said it's going to be starting today, but if you were to be elected tomorrow,
we've got a plan in place that we're ready to get going, and the first thing to do is to prioritize the projects that we know need to happen. Number 1 being Calhoun West, number 2 being Church Creek, number 3 getting out there and cleaning and maintaining and acquiring ditch easements out there in West Ashley. Number 4 is adopting the Dutch's plan for Johns Island, and number 5 is King and Yuji, which is flooded for 50 years. Those are 5 projects that we need to start, we need to be accountable for, and every quarter give people an update on where we are so they know what's going on. We're starting in a tough spot. We're $43 million behind on spring fish burn, so we need to get our act together here and get moving forward.
all right, and over to traffic. So what are the main problems with traffic in your opinion? What are the problem spots, the things that we can fix?
Well, traffic is really tied into growth. And this area is growing, as you know, not just the city, but the region. And as we grow, we have to think about the growth patterns that are out there and give people opportunities to succeed in terms of mobility. So long-term, 526 is out there. That's at the county and the SIB. But in the interim, what are we going to do? When it comes to traffic and mobility, fly over the James Island connector and Folly Road, fly over 17 in Maine, build those pitchforks on Johns Island, widen Maybank Highway, Central Park Road. Those are projects that we can get going on while we're waiting long-term. Low Country Rapid Transit, which is an alternate form of transportation, large-scale transportation. We've never had a large-scale transit project in 350 years in the city and in this region. We need to do that. And then finally, but integrated, we have to think about growth patterns and use development and development patterns through zoning to put people in places where they can live, work, and play. And that, again, Low Country Rapid Transit will give us that opportunity to do it.
And how long do you think that some of those plans will take to kind of relieve some of the congestion that's around there?
Well, we can give some relief to congestion in fairly short order if we get moving on some of these things. And look, things as simple as going out there and timing lights, putting smart lights. We've been talking about putting a smart light at the corner of River Road and Main on Johns Island for 4 years. We haven't done it. Go do it. That will give real relief. And then start the projects. The pitchforks, those are projects that take months, not years. Low Country Rapid Transit's probably 5 years down the road, but you can't get to the last day till you start on the first day, and we got to start today.
All right, And going on to overdevelopment and housing, would you say that overdevelopment is obviously an issue here?
Well, if you look around and you look at all the cranes that are out there, what are they building? I mean, people think they're building hotels. People think they're building apartments. Well, the truth of the matter is they're building a lot of different things that weren't planned, mostly apartments, market rate apartments in one area of the city, 3,500 within a square mile. That's just not a sustainable long-term model. We have to use zoning and planning to our advantage, and we haven't done that. And when you get off the peninsula onto Johns Island, we're building in places that we know flood and are going to flood. We're going to have to take care of those issues. We have to do things like transferable development rights. All of these things take planning. We need to make sure we put our planning team with our traffic and transportation team, something I've been calling on for a long time. Merge those two departments. Let's have a structural change in the city on how we look at things. We've not changed up the way we do business in the city for 44 years. It's time to change, for sure. And it's time to look forward and to put the people who are going to be managing all this together and have plans. And zoning is, at the end, are really our best tool.
And how would you do the zoning automatically? You would start going in.
Well,
what would be your first part
for
of
instance, we know on Johns Island there are areas that we can't build, we shouldn't build, but it's land owned by private landowners. We're going to have to give them some options. So we have a program that's called transferable development rights. We need to do that, and we need to look at areas on the Upper Peninsula which are high ground, which are large pieces of property, and look at those places as opportunities for live, work, play. That's the kind of thing we need to do, is plan for the future, and we can do it regionally. Attainable housing can be a regional approach, and we should have a regional approach to attainable housing. That's really important.
That actually where right into the next point is attainable housing. With so much development, how big of a problem is the attainable housing that's happening? Why hasn't that been something in the past that's been developed, as opposed to what people think that are the hotels and so on and so forth?
Attainable housing is a challenge for us, and there's a number of ways to do it. First, define what that is. I mean, there are certain areas of the city that we need to build housing for the workforce, people who work in the hospitality industry, people who work in the hotel, in the hospitals, places where people work. We need to have them live in close proximity. That is through cooperative zoning and work with the people who are building that. We don't have prescriptive zoning in this state, so we're going to have to do that cooperatively. Then we have to think about workforce housing for people who need help, and that's an area that we've got to really work on, and we haven't done it. It's got to be cooperative. We don't have the prescriptive zoning that's out there, so we have to work and we have to identify areas where we can put people in dense developments so they can live, work, and play in close proximity, and we have to tie it into transportation. So lots of challenges there, but without the plan going forward, you're never going to meet those challenges.
And so pretty much that's essentially what you're hoping to achieve if you are elected, to kind of get those zones in place and then get the planning onto it.
To have a plan, to look forward, to see what the city looks like in 30 years and move back. Remember, we're a city of 135,000 residents and 7.5 million visitors. How are we managing that? Or more importantly, how are we not managing that? Everything that we've talked about in this interview in terms of financing right now is on the backs largely of residents, 135,000 at a time, through property taxes, which we keep raising. What about those tourists? We need to think about ways to equitably and economically tap into those resources to do some of the things in flooding and transportation, growth and housing that we're currently looking to our residents to do. And that's just not the way it's going to of the future.
All right, and is there any last things you want to say to voters before they go out to the polls tomorrow?
So make sure you get out there, look around, what's happened in the last 4 years, and the things that are important to you. Have we made progress? West Ashley, what's happened over there? Has there been a big change in the way we've approached the business of taking care of West Ashley, of revitalizing West Ashley, of re-energizing West Ashley, of not urbanizing it? What about downtown with flooding and growth? What's happened? What have we done anything to put the brakes on? Look at the Sergeant Jasper project. You were promised 4 years ago that would never happen, that it would be rezoned, it would be scalable. What's happened? There it is, it's been built. So it's time to take a look, to have a plan, and the only way to do that is to change course, to change leadership, and to get out there and put it on the table.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.